Today, the subject we are covering is the subject of guilt. And what does the Bhagavad Gita say about it? Guilt is a very disempowering emotion. It's in fact a debilitating emotion. And the extent by which guilt disempowers us can be seen by the status of Arjuna in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita. So, if we see what Arjuna says to Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, you will understand immediately what his status is. In the first chapter, verse 29, Krishna is standing before Arjuna, and Arjuna is overcome with the possibility of guilt. Feels guilty that for the sake of royal happiness, he is about to kill all his near and dear relatives. So in text 29, he says, Vepatuscha sharire me Roma harshascha jayate. He says, my body is trembling. My hair is standing on end. Gandivam shram sate hastat. My bow Gandiva is slipping from my hands because my hands are also trembling and my hands have become wet with perspiration. My bow, the famous bow Gandiva, is slipping from my hand. Tvak chaiva paridayate. And my skin is burning. So these are the intensity with which he is experiencing it. In the earlier verse, Arjun says, Arjunivacha drishtve mam swajanam Krishna yuyutsum samupashtitam siddhanti mama gatrani mukham cha parisuyashati. Arjun said, my dear Krishna, seeing my relatives and friends before me, I feel the limbs of my body are quivering and my mouth is drying up. And he says, I'm unable to stand here any longer. I'm forgetting myself. My mind is reeling. I foresee only evil. I do not see how any good can come out of killing my relatives in this battle. Nor can I desire any subsequent kingdom or happiness or victory. O Govinda, what use are kingdoms, happiness, or even life itself when all those for whom we may desire them are now about to fight with me? O Madhusudana, when teachers, fathers, sons, grandfathers, maternal uncles, fathers-in-law, grandsons, brothers-in-law, and all relatives are ready to give up their lives and properties and standing before me, why should I wish to kill them even if I survive? I am not prepared to fight with them even in exchange for all the three worlds, let alone for this earth. Guilt is a dreadful thing. And guilt occurs when we are tortured by our own conscience. We experience shame when other people shame us. We experience guilt when we torture ourselves. And thus, all of us go through life experiencing guilt in one way or another. And of course, shame also. So experiencing guilt, all of you have gone through. The guilt of not doing something that your parents had wanted you to do. In fact, a lot of human lives are wasted because they feel guilt at not having done what their parents would have wanted them to do. Then there is guilt for not having given your children as much as they expect or as you would have wanted. So guilt is a terrible emotion, and guilt is experienced by almost everybody who lives within this world. But the Bhagavad Gita is very unique because the Bhagavad Gita teaches Arjun, and in fact teaches you how to climb out of guilt. All guilt is centered around I. All guilt is centered around aham, mam, mameti. I, me, and myself. It is all centered on the idea I am the doer. And it's also centered on the idea that I have determined this fate. I have determined this destiny. I have determined the events that have come to pass. In actual fact, the Bhagavad Gita quickly removes both these concepts. One, the concept that you are the doer. Of course, if you are not the doer, why would you feel guilty? And it quickly relieves you of the idea that the events in life occur largely because of your doing it. Krishna very clearly points out to Arjun. He gives him Divya Drishti. And in this Divya Drishti, he shows Arjuna not just his cosmic universal form, but he also shows Arjun with divine vision which he has granted him. He shows him that all these kings on the battlefield are already dead. Vedaham samatitani vartmani cha Arjuna bhutani cha bhavishyani mam tu vedna kaschana. He says, I know the past, I know the present, I know the future of everyone. You do not know me. So Krishna explains to Arjun that don't think that because you are not going to fight, these people are going to live on. Look and see. And he shows him that all the Kauravas and all the warriors on the battlefield in front of him are meeting with death. He explains to him, he shows him visually, because a picture is worth 1,000 words. And this is a direct experience of the battlefield. That this war has to happen. And not only this war has to happen, you are inextricably caught up in it. And not only are you inextricably caught in it, you decide whether you want to be a hero or you want to be a coward. because this war has already come to pass. You are only seeing part of the reality because you are not able to see the future. So the belief that we do things, that we create wars, that we are responsible for events that have come to pass within your lives or in the lives of people around you is itself an illusion. It's an illusion because we have limited and restricted vision. Indeed, in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, it is very clearly explained that tena vina tranamapi na chalati. Not a blade of grass moves without God's consent. If the blade of grass moves and bends on the left side, that is by God's consent. If it bends and moves on the right side, that is also by God's consent. It is entirely our foolishness that we believe that we are in fact responsible for what is happening in life. Yes, we are involved. Yes, we have a duty to perform. Yes, we can choose to be a hero or we can choose to be a coward. But the idea that you can influence events that take place on a global scale is simply ludicrous. Number two, you think that you are the person engaging in all these activities. It is not you who is engaging in these activities. It is your prakriti that is engaging in all these activities. It is your nature which is engaging in all these activities. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains that you are part nature or prakriti, and the other part of you is the soul. Prakriti does everything. The soul does nothing. But that prakriti is not you. That prakriti is merely associated with the soul that is you. And because that prakriti is associated with you, you foolishly think that you are that prakriti and you think you are that doer and you imagine that you are therefore guilty. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna points out to Arjuna, Bhumi apo nalo vayur kham manobuddhirevacha ahankara ityam me bhinna prakriti ashtada. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. All of these are part of my inferior energies. And he also says, Aparayam itastvanyam prakritim vidime param jiva bhutam mahabhao yayedam dharyate jagat. And you, he says, are part of my superior energy, which is sustaining and maintaining creation. So earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. So everything that you can see, smell, hear, taste, touch, think, imagine, create is not done by you, it is done by Prakriti. It is done by Prakriti. You do nothing. Everything is done by nature. And who governs this nature? Who directs this nature? Who acts on this nature? Krishna says, I direct this nature. Mayadhyakshena prakriti suyate characharam hetuna nena kaunteya jagad viparivartate. Krishna says, I am the director. I am controlling. I am directing Prakriti. That of all living entities, they are all controlled by me. But oh fool, Krishna says, you think you are doing things. Prakriti kriyamanani gune karmani sarvashah ahankara vimudatma kartaham iti manyate. The foolish living entity imagines himself to be the doer of those activities, which are in fact performed by material nature. And when you imagine that you are the doer, when you imagine that you are doing things, then what happens? Karya karanam kartritve hetur prakriti uchyate purusha sukha dukhanam bhoktritva hetur uchyate. All activities, all actions are performed by Prakriti. But the soul, the living entity, he imagines that he is the doer and therefore he enjoys or he suffers. So why do you suffer guilt? You suffer guilt because you think you are the doer. Indeed, he says that Prakriti is performing everything. You think you are the doer, therefore you are enjoying or you are suffering. Purusha Prakriti sthohi bhungte Prakriti jan gunan. Karanam guna sangasya sadasad yoni janmasu. And so you travel in life, and depending upon your association and depending upon your proclivities, you acquire different types of Prakriti. And those types of Prakriti which you acquire, some of them are good and some of them are bad. And thus you travel through life, birth after birth, experiencing good Prakriti, bad Prakriti, without realizing that you are the soul. Mamaivanso jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana mana shastendriyani prakriti stani karshati. Krishna says, and the soul which in association with Prakriti moves life after life, the soul is but an ounce, it is a fragment of me. And being a fragment of me, and falsely imagining that Prakriti is under its control, it struggles with this Prakriti. You struggle with your body, you struggle with your mind, you struggle with your intelligence, you struggle with your ego. And you struggle, it's a painful struggle because Prakriti overwhelms you. How many of you have decided this year in your New Year resolutions that this is what you will do and this is what you will not do? And yet, does your Prakriti not force you to do exactly what you know is not good for you? How many of you decided to lose weight, stop smoking, stop drinking, and how many times has Prakriti acted against your decision? How many times have you made decisions that you will exercise, you will take care of your body, that you will eat right, and then your Prakriti acted against you. How many times have you decided that you will not get irritated, you will not get angry, you will be more loving and you will be more compassionate? And how many times has your Prakriti acted against you? So in this way, your Prakriti acts against you and you struggle with your Prakriti. Because you are an Ansha, Mamai Vansho, Jiva Loke, Jiva Bhuta Sanatana, Mana Shastendriyani Prakriti Sthani Karsha. You are struggling against your mind and your senses, which are in fact none other than Prakriti. And on this journey of your life, who is directing your wanderings? Who is directing what you're doing? I already told you, Prakriti is does everything, and that is directed by God. And this Lord, He is seated in your heart. Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam Hridaya Deshe Arjuna Tishtati. Brahmyan Sarva Bhutani Yantrarudani Maya. Krishna says, I am seated in your heart and I am driving you onward towards your destiny. You are merely seated in a machine made of material energy. Tam eva sharanam gaccha sarva bhavena bharata tat prasadat param shantim sthanam prakshasi shashvatam. Indeed, surrender unto this Lord who is in your heart, and He will take you towards peace, perfection, and the supreme destination. So God is moving you onward towards your destiny. He is acting through Prakriti, and your Prakriti is acting. And you think that you are acting. Because you think you are this ego, you think you are this intelligence, you think you are this mind, you think that you are this body. You are the observer, you are the Sakshi. You do nothing, Prakriti does everything. You have been created by the Lord for the fulfillment of your destiny. Instead of resisting the plans that God has for you, learn to surrender unto that Lord who is in your heart, and by His grace and direction, you will move forward towards peace, perfection, and the supreme destination. This world is a huge play. There are many, many explanations. We're talking now about metaverse. But long, long before all these tech giants came in, the concept of multiple universes was already entertained, was already described in Vedic scriptures and scriptures in that tradition. The idea is that every cycle of creation, there is another person with your name and with this Prakriti who experiences the same things that you're experiencing now, who goes through life in the same way that you're experiencing now, because this is his opportunity for salvation. Some will reach salvation. Some souls who have the same Prakriti in future universes or even parallel universes will suffer because of ignorance. But if you have knowledge, if you have wisdom, if you perform yajna or sacrifice, if you remember God and if you forget yourself, you will effortlessly, fluidly, naturally, flow with the current of life, fulfilling all your duties and obligations in a spirit of sacrifice and devotion. And you will attain peace and perfection. Yataha pravrittir bhutanam yena sarvam idam tatam swakarmana abhyarchaya siddhim vindati manavaha. And each person, by the performance of his God-given duties in a spirit of sacrifice and devotion to that all-pervading Lord, they attain perfection. Anashritaha karma phalam karya karma karoti yaha sa sannyasi cha yogi cha na niragnir na chakriya. Indeed, Krishna says, without the person who performs his God-given duties in a spirit of sacrifice to the all-pervading Lord, without taking shelter of the fruits of his labor, he is the true yogi, he is the true sannyasi, not one who lights no fire and does no work. So stop thinking that you are the doer. Stop imagining that this world and its future events are not already ordained and decided. The future will come in course and it's already decided. You are placed in life to perform your God-given duties in a spirit of sacrifice and devotion, without thinking you are the doer, but applying yourself in the best possible manner. Indeed, when we don't have the ability, science now has proven that we do not have the ability to choose. Many things are already chosen. From the moment of your birth, from the time you appeared before your parents, from the time they put you in school, and so on and so forth, everything became naturally the result of what was already ordained. Forget about this idea that I am the doer. Be absorbed in God. Remember God and forget self. And when you remember God and forget self, all guilt will vanish with that. With the self that vanishes, guilt will vanish. And with your absorption in God, you will realize that you are merely a passenger in the plan of destiny. And thus you will attain peace, perfection, and salvation. I will pause here now. If someone has questions, please feel free to ask them.
Good morning, sir. Sir, our first question is acceptance the first step of overcoming guilt?
Acceptance of God, acceptance that not a blade of grass moves without his consent, acceptance that God is in your heart and taking you onward towards your destiny. This acceptance of God and forgetfulness of self is the key to becoming free of guilt.
Yes. Okay, sir. So we are moving to the next question. So is it okay to feel guilty even if we are doing the right thing, we are making the right choices?
First of all, Please understand, guilt comes when you think you are doing.
Yes.
When you realize that Prakriti is doing everything and God is directing that Prakriti, there is no guilt. You are not the doer. If you think you are the doer, you will enjoy and you will suffer whatever happens.
Yes.
Good or bad, these are all relative things. You should do what God wants you to do. You should do what comes within your duty. You must do it in a spirit of sacrifice, without ego, in a selfless manner. There is no guilt then.
Yes, sir. So, how to overcome it in the modern world, we can say, in our day-to-day life, especially in corporate world where we need to take a lot of hard decisions as well.
You simply focus on God, forget self. Don't take selfish decisions. Don't take decisions that are guaranteed or designed to promote yourself. You do what is best in the circumstances that you have been placed, in a spirit of sacrifice and devotion. Don't look for credit. Don't look to imagine that you are the doer. Don't look to project yourself as a hero or heroine, and automatically all things will fall in place.
Yes, sir. So, in case if you want to add something to this session, please do that since we have time for that also.
So, in very simple, just in summary, you are not your Prakriti. You are seated in a machine made of material energy. Your earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, ego, these are all your physical body, your mind, your intelligence, your ego. All these are part of the vehicle that you are associated with. You do nothing. The chauffeur of your car, the driver of your car is God. Surrender unto Him. Do whatever He tells you to do. Do not think that you are driving the car. Do not think that you are pressing the accelerator and you are doing everything. That is all done by God. And the route has already been decided. So you have no say. Somebody else has booked the Uber. Somebody else has given the instructions as to where you have to be reached. Don't think that you can change it. So everything has got a bigger plan than you imagine. Therefore, don't pass judgment on the world. Don't pass the idea that this is great, that is bad. Everything is wonderful because everything is designed by God. And because it is designed by God, it is happening exactly as it should. You just do your job in the best possible way. Without thinking yourself to be the doer, without expecting any fruit or recognition, without imagining that you are the doer, and without even thinking that you will make a difference. And you will get peace, you will be free from guilt, and you will attain salvation.
So, how can we define Prakriti here? How can we describe it?
This whole thing, all my lectures so far, I've covered it in great detail. Those who have such questions are recommended to go back and see all my lectures.
Sure.
Prakriti consists of the three gunas,
Hmm.
which I have covered in the last couple of lectures.
Yes, sir.
And how we became associated with Prakriti has also been discussed. So also how Prakriti, what are the laws of Prakriti in terms of the law of karma is also discussed in great detail. I suggest those of you who are still inquiring about such things to go back and see the lectures from the beginning.
Sure.
So
So, sir,
if there are no other questions, then we will conclude.
yeah, sure, sir.
So
Sir,
Hari
yeah.
Om, Jai Shri Krishna, Hare
Sir,
Krishna.
thank you so much, sir. I would like to ask the audience, you can suggest topics for our upcoming sessions as well, and stay tuned here. We will be having this conversation every Thursday morning. Thank you so much.